And
Wow.
so for 8 years, Master Nee and George taught me how to go with the flow.
Mm,
And what Master Nee says is learning how to go with the flow means gaining mastery over life.
mm. Man,
If I,
that's
yeah,
deep right there, Bob. That's
you,
deep.
yeah,
Even when you
it,
was
it,
doing that,
it,
because see, because you, like you say, one of the things that you said, when things are against you, when people are against you and not trying to listen to what you're trying to say as if what you're saying is irrelevant, then you just have to just go with the flow. Let it just let it be reach. I like that. That's something that
mhm,
you think about it, and I guess sometimes you may do that, but the way that you just put it, it makes more sense now. You know what I'm saying? It could be in your subconscious, but now that you done put it out there, now it's like,
mhm.
okay, that's what this is. Just go with it. You know what I'm saying?
Go
Like
with it.
leave it alone and do what you have to do. And like you said, when they come to you, because they will come and ask you
They will
questions
come.
about, your podcast, ask you questions about your book. And when they do come, be ready and just go with the I like that. I
And
like
go
that a
with the
whole
flow.
lot, man.
And the trap that's in there, of course, is when you say go with the flow. A lot of people think of getting on an inner tube and floating down a nice creek, in a sweet summer day with the wind breeze and everything. It's not always like that. There are rocks,
Yeah.
and you don't want to become disinflated. You don't want to run aground. And then there's sometimes you could be fooled by thinking, well, this is a time to retreat, but maybe it's really a time to punch through.
Hmm.
Maybe it's a time when you gotta say, no, listen to me.
Hmm.
Maybe you got to raise your voice and get their attention. There's those times too. So what the I Ching teaches you is it actually cuts life up into 64 different pie slices
Wow.
and teaches you that there are 64 different flows. And in those flows, there are 6 subflows.
Mm.
So it's not something that you learn overnight, but if
Yeah.
you if you practice it every day, and it's only 10 minutes a day to do the practice,
Hmm.
but if you practice it over a few months, all of a sudden you start to own it and you immediately can recognize, is this a time of calculated waiting? Is this a time of punching through? Is this a time of retreat? But you get to feel the details of what that actually feels like. And then the only trick is to align yourself with it so
Mm.
that you're appropriate for the time.
Hmm.
And you've met those folks who just always seem to be appropriate for the
Hmm.
time.
Yeah.
People say things and it would piss you off, but they always seem to come back with just the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like they're almost born with it. Those are the people that I look up at and say masters. Those are masters.
Man, that's cool. No wonder it took you 8 years then. Now that you say it's 64
Mm-hmm.
different flows, and then you have, as I would say, like 6 bulletin points under the 64. So, so I can't figure the math out right now, but that's a whole lot, different ways and different things that you have to maneuver. So yeah, that was
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool. So
Yeah,
Bob,
yeah.
tell me, so with that,
Mm-hmm.
is that the book that was written over 2,500 years ago? Or is that
That
something totally different?
Yeah, no, that's the book that was written 2,500 years ago. Well, there's a couple of them. I mean, there are a couple of them. The wisdom of Taoism is kept in a book that was written about 2,500 years ago.
Hmm.
That's called the Tao Te Ching, which means the classical book of the way of virtue. Tao means here Taoism. It means the way.
Hmm.
And Te means virtue, and Ching is a classical book. So the Tao Te Ching is the classical book of the way of virtue. And my wife, who I married, my wife, she is a Bible literalist Southern Baptist,
Hmm.
right? So she believes in the Bible literally. And I'm coming from being a Taoist Buddhist.
Hmm.
So, how did we ever have a conversation,
Yeah.
right? But if you look at what Jesus taught, okay, and you know, it's funny, you look at a lot of people that have bad feelings about Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
and they you know, they don't like to even say Jesus Christ or talk about that and the like.
Yeah.
But Jesus came, and basically what he did was he basically said, you guys have all been living with a PC. You've been
Mm-hmm.
working on a PC, and your whole culture is a PC. And I'm going to introduce you to a Mac.
Mm. Yeah.
I'm going to show you a new operating system.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And basically, you know, if you get away from the institution of the religion and the
Yeah.
dogma of the religion, you get away from all that exclusivity, my highway or the highway, you get away from all that. You just look at what the man taught.
Mm-hmm.
It's really weird stuff, like
Yeah.
love your enemy,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
forgive 7 times 70.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
I mean,
or or in the book of James, what complexed me one time when I read, he said, "Consider it all joy when you go
uh-huh.
through many trials and tribulations." I'm like, wait a minute, consider it all joy. But then, as you say, as you read it, you know, you go on. And I didn't mean to cut you off, Bob,
No, no,
but as we go into that, tell us about your book, "I Am the Way."
right, right. So what happened was, uh I took this 2,500-year-old book. Well, Connie, my wife, you know, like, it was funny because she would go off to church on Sundays, and she'd have these really sad eyes. And one time I said to her, honey, why are you sad? And she said, well, you know, I love you so much. I just hate it. You're not going to go to heaven with me.
Mm,
Because in her belief system, I had to be saved. I had to be saved. And I would say to her, well, I hate it that you're not going to be reincarnated with me. She'd
mm.
slap me, you know. But when she would tell me what the sermons were about, I would say, well, that's just like chapter 32 of the Tao Te Ching. So I started taking little pieces of that 2,500-year-old book,
Mhm,
and I started asking, what does the Bible say about this? And it would always take me to a teaching of Jesus.
mhm,
And so I started saying, okay, well, honey, you know, when you say this, let me just put it to you in these terms. For example, Lao Tzu, he writes about leadership. He
mhm,
says, you should never strive for leadership. It should be something that you are called to.
mhm,
And if you remember, Jesus says, I go where I am called.
mm, mm,
And Lao Tzu says, when your work is done, you should step down because
mhm,
it's the work that's important, not you.
mm.
And when Jesus was done with his work, what did he do? He ascended, and
Yeah.
he allowed the others to carry on the work, and thus his work became eternal.
Mm,
So the way that Lao Tzu saw the world and the workings of how this wonderful creature called human
mhm,
works, Jesus was teaching the same thing. So I just started taking little pieces of the old book, the Tao Te Ching, and translating it into Christian language and Christian
mm.
terminology.